Greetings and salutations, and we're back with the Woodless run part 6, 7. That's a witch. And soon, after I dig down far enough, I'll stop borrowing their area. Do I have a second? No, I do not have a second sword. So battling the witch is probably a bad idea, but nailed it. Beautiful. So today, I wanted to talk about, well, doing mining and other things in the Woodless run. I wanted to talk about the... Whoa. Clicked off the old Minecraft there. Whoops. Grand Theft Auto 6. And the delay. Now, there's a lot of... Oh yeah, I forgot the copper update came out. So I could start using copper for tools. Oh, cool. Just use a copper sword. Saves me getting... Hopefully it has better durability. Anyway, back to Grand Theft Auto 6. With them delaying it, the first thing I thought was, you know, there's not going to be much of anything different from the previous Grand Theft Auto to this one. From 5 to 6. Storyline not included here. I'm talking purely from a mechanical standpoint, right? There's not going to be much there. Which, to some people, they're like, well, you know, that's perfectly fine. Okay. Fine and dandy. You don't want technical changes in your Grand Theft Auto, I get it. But let me posit this theory. I think when you have this Grand Theft Auto 6 thing coming out, I think when they start doing more with the actual franchise than just, it's a new coat of paint on the previous game, you'll actually come across people wanting to see the differences, wanting to actually play it more and indulge it more. The only thing that I think really saved Grand Theft Auto 5 was the fact that people during COVID were like, hey, we're doing Grand Theft Auto roleplay. So the GTA RP took over. Now, I got Grand Theft Auto 5 for free one time on Epic Games. I think I've logged less than an hour in it. And that's not saying that I don't like the franchise. When I played Grand Theft Auto 3, I played it to completion. I played the entire storyline. Hated the ending, but nevertheless played it to completion. And I thought it was decent. I thought, you know what? It's a fairly good game. It was my first ever soiree into Grand Theft Auto, so I thought, give it a fair shot, give it a fair shake. Why not? Then I played Grand Theft Auto Vice City. What really sold me on that was the 80s music, which, you know, given my age, 80s music is, well, right up my alley. And so, but I didn't have a problem with the Grand Theft with again, I clicked off the thing. Why is this not doing that? You shouldn't be clicking off that much. Even though I have it set for full screen, it just for some reason is bound and determined to want to go off the screen. And I don't like it. And it needs to stop. Actually, let me check real quick. That's the options, right? Video. Vibrant visuals, custom, render distance. We can even go further because I can. Full screen. Okay. Anyhow, when playing Grand Theft Auto 4, for example, it it felt like it was the same thing all over again. It's just, oh, there's different music this time. Quite literally. I think the only thing that mechanically changed was you could take cover behind vehicles. You could fire from cover. You could blind fire. But Vice City had that kind of. That was it. And Grand Theft Auto 5 seemed just the same. So with them delaying 6, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, is the reason they're delaying Grand Theft Auto 6 because they're afraid it's not going to succeed? Are they afraid it's not going to be as good as it could be? Or are they delaying it because it's not finished? Or are they delaying it for a third reason? Personally, I think they might as well just bring it out. I mean, if you just take a look at other titles that have come out that have been doing extremely well. You also have things that could come out that would be an absolute smash hit. Now, of course, there's a year's time between now and Grand Theft Auto 6. Will I be getting it? No. No. I don't see a need to. Like I said, I played number 5 for like an hour, 2 hours tops. And I realized it's the same exact thing. I played San Andreas maybe 20 minutes. Just it did not appeal to me. Even though there was stuff that was added to that game mechanically that was interesting, like the fact that your character, if they didn't take care of their their weight, they could put weight on. If if they had a bad diet, they would put weight on, and then you could take weight off. Cool mechanic, don't get me wrong, but is it it just felt almost like an afterthought, right? And for those that are saying, well, they could just, again, why does it do that? I'm not. It's not. It shouldn't be doing that. Anyhow, I think it's being treated like an afterthought, and a lot of it. Now, of course, you have those people out there that would say things like, well, they could just do what they did to Red Dead for Grand Theft Auto. But allow me to offer up this. I think if they did that, I think if they did that, you'd have... What is going on? Needs to stop doing that. I'm not a fan of it. Anyhow, I think if they did that, you'd have a bigger problem. Like, they could put all the detail they want into the game, but unless you're actively playing it for those details, it just seems kind of almost lost in translation. You know what I mean? Because you're sitting there looking at the game like, ah, yes, well, I'm playing it for these minute details that I saw that they put into the game. What is? I'm serious. This is really starting to irritate me now. It's almost like I can't make enough left turns. It's like if you make too many left turns or right-hand turns, it's going to go over onto the other monitor. I might have to start recording this on a singular monitor, which means I won't be able to look over. Anyhow. I think they're going to end up making a mistake with it. I fervently believe that. And, of course, everybody's entitled to their opinions, and I'm sure I will be told I'm very wrong and way off base, which, if I am, cool. If I'm not, cool. But I think they're going to make a mistake with it. I really do. Because they're either going to overdevelop it and it's going to underdeliver because it's been pushed back, what, 3 times now? People are kind of getting upset at that. And they're not giving a reason as to why it's been pushed back. Now, for example, Half-Life 3, the fabled Half-Life 3, that they're never going to bring out, right? People have grown to accept that they're never going to bring it out, right? And so, to that end, you've got people that are like, well, we know they're not going to bring out Half-Life 3, but we make jokes about it now. But one of these days, Gabe Newell is actually just going to be like, all right, fine, we'll bring out Half-Life 3. Why not? When he does, it's going to be a smash. Almost a guaranteed smash. You know, the old term for smash, meaning a smash hit, a big hit, just a grandiose thing. Now, will I play that if they ever bring it out? No. I played the first Half-Life. In fact, funny story, when I was in college, my roommate, he had a trackball. This is what got me to using a trackball first and foremost. And he uses trackball in every game he played, including Half-Life. And he was like, man, I'm struggling with this final level in Half-Life. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why would you be struggling with a final level in Half-Life? Well, come to find out, the reason why he was struggling with it was because the final level in Half-Life required platforming. And quite a fair bit of platforming, too. So, being me, and being the fact that I played a whole bunch of Quake and a whole bunch of Unreal Tournament, and platforming was kind of a mainstay, and he was more of a single-player Andy, we're sitting there, and I was like, well, give me a shot at it. I'll try. And he's like, are you sure? I said, well, yeah, sure. He's like, you ever played it? No. He's like, ever played it with a trackball? No. He's like, well, I'll tell you right now, it's not easy to do this, the jumping and the platforming in this game. He's like, it really isn't. I was like, okay. I said, basic controls, WSAD. He's like, yeah. And I said, double tap W for sprint. And he goes, yeah. I said, okay. All right, got it. Checks out. And he's just like, you sure? I said, yeah, sure. I'm sure. And he's like, okay. So, there we are. He's watching me play Half-Life. I die the first time. And, of course, I didn't know about the head crabs and all the other jumping things that come to get you in Half-Life. So I was like, well, whatever. I'll learn from it. And I did. And I died the first time, and I died, I think, the second time. And he's like, see? It's not easy. I said, don't worry, I got it this time. He's like, no, you don't. Jumped all the way up, cleared the level, got out, just ignored the head crabs altogether. And he's like, wait. He's like, I've been trying to do that for months. He's like, how? He's like, have you? And you've never played it? I said, no, I've never played it. He's like, he was baffled. I said, have you ever played Quake? He's like, no. I said, ever played Unreal Tournament? He's like, no. I said, play those. Because those, you have to jump, you have to move, you have to platform on the move versus other players. It's unpredictable. So you have to pretty much have your head on a swivel the whole time you're playing it. And so he managed to get his hands on Quake 3. And he started playing it. He's like, I can't play this. He's like, it's way harder than Half-Life. Because the multiplayer aspect, of course, it's completely unpredictable. And I said, I grew up on Quake, so to me, I said I had to learn the trackball. That's what the first 2 deaths were about. And the first death was because he didn't play inverted, and I do. I always play everything inverted. So when I push forward on something, it looks down. When I pull back on it, it looks up. So I play inverted every time. And so we had this discussion. He's like, well, I've got this other level I can't do. And he's like, and it's in the game Mafia. And I was like, all right. He's like, it's a driving mission. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I can't do it because I keep running into things. And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Mouse and or keyboard and trackball. I said, I'll give it a shot. And he's like, all right, well, we'll see. And so he gets Mafia all loaded up, and I sit down to it. He gets to the mission. And when he gets to the mission, I'm like, okay, well, no problem, let's try it. First time I try it, I fail. Just fail. And because I didn't know where I was going. When I found out the route that I needed to take, I was like, okay, that's the route, I can do it. Not a problem. I got it this time. He's like, you sure about it? Yeah, I'm sure about it. No worries. And so I sit down to it again, and he just kind of had that look on his face, like, no, you don't. You don't have it. You're not a chance, right? And so ran along a couple minutes. I'm squeezing the car between two cars, and I'm barely like I'm going, balls to the wall, going right through these two vehicles, and he's over there panicked, like I'm gonna fail the mission. I said, well, what's the problem if I fail the mission? I just start it again. I come back to it. No big deal. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to fail the mission, and I don't want to have to do this, I don't want to do that. It's like, okay, well, don't worry about it. I said, we'll get there. And he's like, all right, well, whatever. And so a couple minutes later, I finished the mission. I had a little bit of damage on the car, not a whole lot. He's like, dude, that's crazy. He's like, I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it. I said, it's just your bog standard driving game. I said, I played, at the time I had already played Grand Theft Auto 3 to completion. I said, I played Grand Theft Auto 3 to completion. I said, one of the hardest missions was the tank, stealing the tank. And he goes, oh yeah. He's like, I remember that mission. I said, yep, I did it. He said it was one of the craziest missions, but I said I got it done, so hey, it's what I do. And ever since that point, we became real fast friends, talking about games and everything. And I was playing at the time StarCraft and Diablo 2, and he saw Diablo 2 and he was like, what is this? I said, it's a hack and slash. It says Diablo 2. He's like, okay, well, what's the premise? I said, well, you level a character. I said, you go through the storyline, and I said, you kill demons and other, ne'er-do-wells. And he's like, okay. So I got him all set up with some Diablo 2, and he was kind of taken by it. He liked it. He didn't really play a whole boatload of it, but he liked it. And then one of the other people in college named Rob loved StarCraft. Like, he absolutely loved StarCraft. But it was crazy because he had a particular set of circumstances that allowed him to not continue college, which sucked because Rob was a good guy. But let me tell you, crazy time with Rob. He really enjoyed playing StarCraft. And then when he learned the hotkeys and everything, he's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to play this game. And he wasn't a video game player. He was one of those people that was like, I don't really care about games. And then when he saw StarCraft, he was like, okay, I'm kind of digging it. Space age, military, blow things up, that kind of thing. and he was just taken by it, and I don't know if he still plays it or what. But good times. Meanwhile, back to the whole thing about Grand Theft Auto. I mentioned it on Twitter. I think that Grand Theft Auto is doing a disservice, and I said if people just realize it's no different than Grand Theft Auto 3, the only thing that's changed is the coat of paint that they put on it. And it's like, and somebody's like, well, yeah, he's like, all games are largely the same like that. And I'm like, yeah, that may be the case, but the difference is, do you really want that to happen, right? Do you really want your next installment of Grand Theft Auto to be just like every other Grand Theft Auto? I mean, ideally, people would want it to be a complete epic, like masterpiece. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it, right? It gets to be a point where certain intellectual properties have played out, right? And there's just a time when you have to let them die on the vine. For example, World of Warcraft. That's one of those intellectual properties that has worn out its welcome. Like, I played it for many years, and I retired, and I've never gone back. And I won't. It's just not worth it. You know, I did everything I've ever wanted to do in it. So, to me, there's nothing left to do in it. I did all the raids up until I forgot which expansion it was I stopped raiding. Battle for Azeroth, I think, was when I stopped. It's when I stopped actually raiding. Was Battle for Azeroth, I think. And looking back on it, I just kind of look at the whole game as like I wasted too much time on it. But you have that naivete where you're like, oh, the game can't possibly be that bad. So you sit there and you think that it's just people that dislike it and they're just being, hateful, etc., and so on. And then you realize, actually, no, that's kind of trash. When you realize it's kind of trash, it hits home. And then you're like, yeah, it's actually giga trash. So, oh, Archer. And a creeper. Well, that's a golden helmet. And there's a leather one, so that doesn't really help me, does it? Short answer is no. No, it does not. Now, I could be wrong about Grand Theft Auto 6. And, oh, it saw me. But you take a look at it, and it's like, how far can you really go in a like a sandbox civilian simulator? Because that's kind of what it is, realistically speaking. right? Unless you are going to add areas where, you know, the player can now build its own structures and build its own houses and really kind of go that deep into the sandbox thing where you have to haul lumber and actually build it. I mean, if they're going to go deep into the mechanics like that, it might actually be worth a pickup at that point, because now you can actually truly construct a storyline, right? You can truly build something out of it. Or having an occupation so that you don't have to have a storyline. So you could go and do something else for an occupation and make money, which would lead to different endings. If they went that deep into it, that might actually be worth a pickup. But it's going to be a contrived storyline, of course, like it always is with the previous ones. Always deals with the seedy underworld and criminal enterprises and all sorts of things. And it's like... And they said, well, that's why the GTA RP came around, is because, well, now you have all those people who are making their own storylines. Okay, but why does it require the mass population to create a storyline when the supposedly talented developers at Rockstar could do it? And their stock sank by, like, what, 18%? When they announced that they delayed it for a year? That's not good. This is what happens, again, I've already said this is what happens when you go public with a company. When you go publicly traded with a company, it fails. And it will always fail. Because you start listening to the shareholders, and you stop listening to the players. Battlefield's actually listening to the players, which... Yes, it does take time, but they have to test things. They can't just go off of pure player emotion and be like, well, the players said this is bad and overpowered, so we're gonna just actively nerf it because players said so, right? And that's kind of what people were hoping. People were hoping that because, you know, players said laser targeting and laser lock-on stuff was bad in Battlefield, that EA was going to immediately nerf it into the dirt forever. Well, that's not how it works. EA has to test it out thoroughly to make sure it truly is broken. They have to test it out to make sure that it can be rectified somehow, and it's not going to upset the balance of the game, because you also have to factor that in too. You have game balance that's not being currently factored in by the population en masse. And, you know, the biggest, and it's going to sound terrible when I say this, but the biggest crybabies about laser-guided munitions is the people that fly all the time and want to have a 100 kill death count with no deaths. 100 kills, no deaths, because they're flying around in a jet all the time. They're the ones crying about the laser-guided munitions being broken and too strong. And it's like, okay, have you tried not worrying about that and actually playing the game? Nope. Nope. The only thing they care about is my kill death isn't high enough. So, okay, that sounds like a personal problem there, buddy. It's like, hey, Captain Throttle Jockey, there's an issue here, and it's a you issue, not an us issue. You know what my kill death is in Battlefield? 0.5. 0.5. But I play Recon, as we've seen, and I laser designate, and I fly drones. And when I'm not playing Recon, on certain maps I don't, and I play Engineer, what do? I lay down mines, I anti-tank, and I repair. And I try to defend the objectives. Playing the game like you're supposed to play it, with the objectives in mind. Just so happens, my team is a pack of strategic geniuses and as visually acute as Ray Charles at midnight. Because I could sit there and, flag. I could sit there and flag down multitudes of players and be like, yes, we have a whole slew of people trying to just waltz right in to the base and waltz right into a point. And what does my team do? Well, they go the other route and they start looking away from where they're getting red diamonds showing up on their map. Like I'm flying the drone directly over the top of an enemy, and they're just like, if the enemy's right here, they're looking back there. It's like, oh, that's not a good sound to have down here. That's not. That's a absolute terrible sound to hear down here. Shock. Who would have guessed that I would have a chasm underneath my building? Underneath my borrowed structure. Every time. Never fails. And seriously, it doesn't. I could just go pick out a random location, and I guarantee you, if I put a building there, what do you know? I'll have problems. The question is what should I do with the copper? I have so much of it. Should I build copper armor? Like, I'm really questioning that. Should I even kit myself out in copper armor? It seems equivocal. Like the tools seem equivocal. So it means it's like if it doesn't matter what tools I use, it's like I'm using the same exact type of tool. What it looks like. That's what it feels like. Nevertheless, I persevere. One of the better sandbox games I've played was called Crackdown, the original. Not I played a little bit of Crackdown 2, but when the music wasn't as good as the original, I was just like, you know what? Nah. That's exactly what I said when I broke that sword. Huh. See? He's looking at him. He's looking forlorn through the window, like, huh. That horse changed color? I thought that horse was lighter colored than that. And I'm gonna make another copper sword. Gonna have to start making copper chests or something. Can I make those? No. Hmm. Unless I can make them out of blocks of copper. I too am scratching my head thinking about it. Ooh, I have string. I can make a bow. Not if I don't pull out the string, I can't. Moving up in the world. We have range technology, boys. We can sling arrows. Well, that wasn't smart. I kind of need more bamboo. It's a necessity for my construction. And the cat does nothing. It's just sitting there. I know they're meant to kill creepers, but it wasn't even doing that. It just kind of sat there like, whatever. Anyhow, what do you think? What do you think's going to happen with Grand Theft Auto 6? You can leave a comment. Let me know what you think. I think it's going to flop. Unless they really do something unorthodox and just do a random, like a completely random take on it and just catch everybody by surprise. If they catch everybody by surprise, then you might have something. But I just don't see it. Like anytime somebody delays a product 3 times and then they rush it to production, which is what's going to happen. They're saying like next November, but what's going to happen? I guarantee you, right around spring or summer, there's going to be a game that's going to come out, and it's going to pull all eyeballs away from it, and they're just going to launch because they're going to panic. But let me know what you think about that one. Now back to the whole EA thing, listening to the players. That is true. They are like they're going to do away with certain laser guided munitions for the time being because they're gonna vault it, but they have to test that stuff. They have to test to see if it truly is broken. And people are saying, well, what about the hit regulation, registrations? Because they're saying the hit reg doesn't work, and they're saying this doesn't work and that doesn't work. It's like, look, folks, you have a development company, right? You have a development crew. Then you have a bug squashing crew. Then you have other crews. The bug squashing crew has to actively test everything you're submitting. This stuff takes time because they have to recreate the event. They can't just knee-jerk reaction and say, yes, it's exactly that, just like you said, clap my hands, it's done. No. They have to recreate the issue. So when they recreate the issue, and it actually is bugged, and now you have to worry about it, what happens? Well, they then implement a piece of code on a test server. When they implement that piece of code on a test server, the fix, as it would be called, that breaks something else. Then they have to debug that. That way the fixed piece of code that they just did fixes it. People think it's just so easy to just snap your fingers and redo it. It's not. Now, I don't know coding 1 iota. Right? I don't. I used RPG Maker to make my game. And RPG Maker did the heavy lifting when it came to coding. And I'm very thankful for that, because if I had to try to learn that and try to do it myself, oh my god, I would have lost my mind. However, RPG Maker did a great service by helping out. But I had issues that I had to squash all the bugs by myself. By testing. It took me probably 2 to 3 months squashing all the bugs. And all of them weren't squashed completely. There was still a couple of bugs that I just could not wrap my head around squashing. That didn't completely bust the game and ruin it. So I kind of engineered the solution in a makeshift manner. I had a spawn issue bug where it was spawning too many of a creature, and it was causing the game to slow down and lag, and then eventually crash, even in test mode. So I was like, okay, that makes no sense. So I launched, and I was like, why is it doing this? What it was doing is I had it set up randomly, was through zone mapping, that randomly it would spawn a creature, but in order to get the creature to spawn, I had it so that it was rolling an integer between 1 and 147,000. And if it hit integers within the area of, say 1,000 to 3,000 and 100,000 to 110,000, what have you. You put in your integer zones, right? Then spawn monster, yes, right? And it would. It would spawn the monster when it rolled in that integer. But what it was doing was my PC was rolling integers ad infinitum. And we're talking, it was using processing power to roll an integer in milliseconds. So for each integer it was rolling in milliseconds, it was doing this hundreds of times a second. Like, it was churning and burning integers. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a bit of a problem. So I set it up to be when it rolls an integer, it takes a half-second pause before rolling another integer. Because I had it so that it was... I walked in and I stepped on 2 of the zones real quick. And it spawned so many that my computer was bogging down. And this was a little 8-bit, 16-bit game. And it was still bogging my system down. It was eating that many resources because it was rolling integers. So with the half-second pause, what it would do is it would come in and it would go, okay, well, we rolled an integer. Wait a half-second, roll another. Wait a half-second, roll another. That little pause gave it enough time so that it didn't kill the computer. But if you stood on one of the zones without knowing, it would sit there, and every half-second it would be rolling integers. And eventually you could flood the board, and it would cause problems. And then I had a problem with the whole getting the monsters to despawn by hiding in certain objects. And then I also had other things where you had to use keys, and the keys were random, and you didn't know which key was for which door. If the key didn't work, you didn't open the door. But if it did work, the key would be broken off in the lock, and then the door would be closed. Yeah. It was a fun little game. The whole idea was a premise of, have you ever had that feeling of you're going towards your door at night, and you feel like you're being watched by something? And that feeling never leaves your body because you feel it just constantly watching you. It's barreling down its gaze on you. You can feel it. And so you start fumbling for your keys to unlock your door quicker because someone's watching you. And you can feel it getting ever closer and ever closer and ever closer. That was the idea I went with. Was that feeling of dread of there's something behind you coming to get you. And it was about fumbling with your keys. That's the feeling I had. That's the feeling I went with, and I made an entire game around it. And I made an entire storyline around it, too. Villager's sounding like he's having a real bad time. But that's going to do it for this one. I did make a little bit of progress. I do want to make more progress. I'm trying so hard to get down there. Because now that I have it all set up, I can just go and tunnel, do what I have to do. I didn't want to just constantly borrow this domicile, but I have to strip mine outside to get the coal, to get the copper, to get the other things, and get iron, to then mine the mine shaft that I'm doing to get the diamond, because that mine shaft's going to get down to the diamond level quicker than the outside. The strip mine is for just resources. The vertical mine is to get down to diamond. And once I get diamond, and I have to get more iron. Otherwise I can't make a bucket. I need a bucket to get water, and I need water to make obsidian, and then I need obsidian, and yeah. Once I get to the nether, though, that's the goal. As soon as I get to the nether, that's the goal. So it's going to take me a bit. So I don't know how much longer this is going to last, but when I get there, and it's over. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the discussion as well. Let me know what you think about Grand Theft Auto and how it's turning out and how you think it'll end. I don't see it ending in a good way. I really don't. I think the company is going to kick the can. It's hurting their stock. I think they're going to keep kicking that can. Pardon me. I think they're going to keep kicking that can until it's too late. I think when it's getting kicked too late, I think they're going to just say, okay, launch it. We have to. And I think all the time and money they've sunk into it, I don't see them getting their ROI. Oh, that's the other thing. A lot of people are talking about Arc Raiders. I've seen Arc Raiders. It's Timu Tarkov. That's the other thing I wanted to talk about was Arc Raiders. And people are trying to say, like people like Shroud, are trying to say that Arc Raiders needs to be Game of the Year. I disagree. I disagree completely. And the reason I disagree completely is because it's a loot shooter. It's literally just like Tarkov. It is Timu Tarkov. Full stop. I've played Tarkov. I didn't care for it. I won't be playing Arc Raiders because it's basically Tarkov. Now, if there was something else to it, a little bit more substance, a little bit more meat on the bone, maybe. But there's not. And it's just kind of meh. And I think the problem is so many people buy into a hype train nowadays. And I think that's why games are cycling so fast. And people are saying, well, Battlefield 6 is already dead and nobody's playing it anymore because Arc Raiders came out. It's like, let's check the Steam charts. Oh, that's right. On the Steam charts, Battlefield 6 still has 300,000 plus players. And that's on any given day. And that's after Season 1 launched. And that's after the BR launched. And it's counting all of those, right? So you're still having 300,000 plus players playing this game. And that's talking with social obligations, work, family, etc. And you're still getting 300,000 players. The game's not dead. It's just where it's at. That's the number. People are looking at it comparatively like, oh, but look at like when Halo 1 was out and Halo 2. And when you had Halo 2 and Halo 3, you could see that you had like 10 million people online. Yeah, across the world. You had 10 million people with an Xbox across the world playing Halo 2. One time we did see somebody in, if it wasn't in North Korea, it was the border. It was the DMZ in South Korea. There was somebody, one dot, what looked like North Korea, and we're like, is that Kim Jong-un playing? Is that Kim Jong-il playing? We didn't know. We were like, who's playing? It's kind of weird. But people are trying to almost point at a game and saying it's trash because it's not as good as this game. Okay, first off, stop doing that. A game is going to stand on its own merits, right? If the game is good and it's been played for years and years and years and it still has a player base, then it's a good game, right? There are some games out there that are great games, but the player base never hit. Why? Because people never saw it. It never had enough advertising. They did, and a lot of these games, there's a lot of obscure gems, so called, that were amazing games that would have been a smash, but they didn't have the marketing because Twitch didn't exist, streaming services didn't exist, YouTube wasn't, was kind of hard to get into, the recording software wasn't there, the technology just wasn't in place when the game was launched. And the game is great, but I can't even think of an example right now, but the game was great, but it just didn't land, right? It's like Starbound. Take a look at Terraria versus Starbound. Why is it Terraria excelled, but Starbound failed? They're almost identical. I think it's because the control scheme of Terraria is easier to grasp and easier to work with than the control scheme for Starbound. Control scheme for Starbound is a little bit different. It's actually a lot different. And I think that's why it didn't pick up and go as far as it could have. Then, conversely, take a look at Balatro. Balatro took off. Simple little game, roguelike, single player experience, but now they have multiplayer mods, but nevertheless, single player experience took off, went like a house of fire. Still is. I mean, it's got players every day, but not necessarily to the degree that it once had. And then you have Clover Pit, probably has the same thing. Players playing it. Pardon me a second time. But that's just how it is. But I think the problem is that games are cycling too fast, because the moment a game falls under 100,000 players, 500,000 players, oh, it's dead game. You have people complaining about bots being in Battlefield 6. It's like, I haven't seen a single bot. Not a one. Every single time I get in, I get a full lobby, and we go. And all these other people, and I'm like, are you right? I'm like, y'all are either playing off peak time or y'all are in another location, because I haven't seen a single bot once. And they're on European servers or on Australian servers. And so the game isn't as widely consumed over there. And so you start getting bots in your games, and you start having off-peak time, and that also lends to the whole, the game is dead. Well, no, it's not. You're just in an area that isn't conducive to the game. That's all. But let me know what you think about Grand Theft Auto. I think it's going to be dead on arrival. I really do. I mean, I think Grand Theft Auto 5 didn't shift as many units as it could have. I think it sold more units when GTA RP kicked in, but I don't think it sold as many units as it could have. I think people are starting to see it. I think people are starting to see the cracks form in the video game industry. That's what I think. But I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I know I did. I don't know when this is going to end, but when it does, it does. And that's the other thing. I finally was able to install Java Edition of Minecraft. It's been forever since it allowed me to do it. I owned Java Edition way back when, and then when it transferred over to being Bedrock Edition, they somehow said, no, you can't install Java again. You have to repurchase it. And I was like, nope, I'm going to wait. But now I can install Java again. And I'm thinking about doing a Java playthrough, not because I need it, but because I love the active blocking. You get a shield, you can right-click and block. Can't do that in this. No, it's bound to the crouch key. Why? Stupidity. That's why. Nevertheless, I hope everybody has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one. Active blocking is best.